I'll never forget the sound of laughter echoing through that banquet hall, sharp and bright like champagne glasses clinking together. It was Mark's 40th birthday, a milestone he insisted on celebrating in style. Rented ballroom in downtown Milwaukee, catered buffet, a live band, the works. He'd been bragging for weeks about how many clients and colleagues would be there. "It'll be the event of the year," he'd said, smirking like the king of his own castle. When I walked into the hall, heels clicking against the marble floor, I expected to see him schmoozing with his business partners. Instead, the first thing I saw was his hand sliding up Kayla's thigh. His assistant. Her laughter, shrill, nervous, cut through the music as his lips grazed her neck. I froze. The room didn't. People whispered, phones tilted discreetly to record. I felt their stares burning into my skin, but my eyes locked only on him. On them. My husband of 12 years, the man I sacrificed for, pawing at a girl young enough to still be paying off her student loans. Mark. My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to slice the air. His head jerked up, his hand still resting on her leg like he couldn't decide whether to pull it back or double down. "Rebecca," he started, but I didn't let him finish. I walked straight up, my body trembling but my steps steady. The smell of her perfume hit me before I even reached them. Sweet, sugary, cheap. Kayla looked like a deer caught in headlights. Mark, on the other hand, had the audacity to smirk. "Happy birthday," I said, loud enough for every table to hear. And then I slapped him. The crack echoed. Conversations halted. Even the band stopped mid-song. His cheek flushed red instantly, and he stumbled back half a step. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One woman actually clapped before realizing what she was doing. "You really thought you could drag me here, parade me around, and humiliate me under my own nose?" My voice shook with rage but carried. I could feel the heat rising up my throat, tears threatening to spill, but I refused to let them. Not here. Not now. Mark tried to recover, pulling on that fake charm. "Rebecca, you're overreacting. It's not what it looks like." I laughed, harsh and bitter. "Not what it looks like? Your hands on her thigh, your lips on her neck, and it's not what it looks like? Do you think I'm blind or just stupid?" Kayla opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to explain, but I turned on her so fast she froze. Don't you dare." The silence was suffocating. Every eye in the room was glued to us. Some of his employees shifted uncomfortably. Others looked downright gleeful. Phones recorded from every angle. His carefully crafted image as Milwaukee's golden boy was crumbling in real time, and I was the one holding the match. I straightened my shoulders. "You wanted a show, Mark? Here it is. You're a liar, a cheat, and a disgrace. Happy birthday." And with that, I turned on my heel and started walking out. My hands shook so hard I could barely keep my purse strap from sliding down my arm, but I kept moving. If I stopped, if I let myself crumble, I'd be giving him what he wanted. Another chance to spin it, to gaslight me, to make me feel crazy. Not tonight. Behind me, I heard his voice rising. "Rebecca, don't do this. Come back here." I didn't even glance back. My heels echoed like gunshots on the tile as I crossed the hall. People parted for me, wide-eyed, whispering like I'd just staged a coup. In a way, I had. By the time I hit the cold night air, my chest was heaving. My phone buzzed in my hand. Messages already pouring in. Screenshots. People sending me the videos they'd taken. My humiliation was now digital currency, already spreading like wildfire. For a second, I wanted to vomit. Then something inside me shifted. Fine. Let it spread. Let the whole damn city see him for who he really was. I pressed my phone to my ear and made a call. Not to him. Not to beg. Not to argue. Not to scream. I called someone who could help me burn his world to the ground, piece by piece. "Hey," I said when the line picked up. My voice was steady now, almost calm. "It's time." He finally handed me the proof. I hung up before they could respond, shoved the phone back into my purse and exhaled. The night air bit at my skin, but it cleared my head. Mark thought tonight would be his crowning moment, the peak of his success, the proof that he had it all: money, power, women, respect. Instead, it was the night his empire began to fall. And I would be the one to make sure it all came crashing down. The night of his birthday party kept replaying in my head, looping like a cruel highlight reel. But betrayal doesn't happen in a single moment. It grows in shadows, hiding behind excuses, feeding on trust. Looking back, I can see the cracks. I just refuse to admit they were there. Mark and I met in college. He was the charming business major with ambition dripping off him, and I was the grounded one, studying accounting, practical to a fault. He used to tell me I made him feel anchored, that without me he'd float away in his own ego. I thought that was romantic. Turns out I was right. He couldn't stand without me, but not because of love, because I was the foundation he built his empire on. When he struggled through grad school, I was the one working late nights as a financial analyst, funneling part of my paycheck to cover his tuition. When he dreamed of opening his own marketing firm, I dipped into my inheritance, the money my mother left me when she passed. I signed the checks, paid the vendors, set up the first payroll. He got the spotlight, the title of founder. I got the back office and a tired smile. I told myself it was fine. That's what marriage was: sacrifice, teamwork, building something bigger than ourselves. And when our daughter Emily was born, I leaned even harder into that belief. I gave up the promotion I was offered, turned down the chance to lead my own team so I could be home more, so he could focus on scaling the business. At the time, it didn't feel like giving up. It felt like investing in us. But investments are supposed to yield returns, not leave you bankrupt. The warning signs had been there. The late-night strategy meetings, the sudden work trips that didn't align with the firm's calendar, the way Kayla, his assistant, texted him at midnight with emojis no professional should be using. I asked him once, just once, and he flew into a rage. "You're paranoid, Rebecca. Do you want me to fire her just because you're insecure?" He turned it around so skillfully I actually apologized to him. I remember that night, sitting in the kitchen, staring at the bills stacked on the counter, wondering if maybe I was losing my mind. He was so convincing. He kissed my forehead, said he loved me, then walked out with his phone buzzing in his hand. I told myself to believe him, because if I didn't, the alternative was too painful. But the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. Emily was the one who finally confirmed what I already knew deep down. She's only 10, but she's observant. Kids always are. One evening, she was FaceTiming me from her room when she paused mid-sentence. "Mom," she whispered. "Dad's in his office with Kayla. They're hugging. And he told me not to tell you." Her voice cracked. That was it. No more excuses, no more gaslighting, no more pretending. When betrayal touches your child, when it makes her feel like she's carrying a secret too heavy for her little shoulders, that's when the line snaps. I hugged Emily so tight that night she could barely breathe, and I whispered, "It's not your job to protect me. It's mine to protect you." And in that moment, I knew. Protecting her meant showing her what strength looks like, even when it feels impossible. The stakes weren't just about me anymore. It wasn't about my dignity, my sacrifices, or the money I poured into Mark's dreams. It was about the example I set for my daughter. Did I want her to grow up thinking this was love? That betrayal was just part of marriage? That women are supposed to stay quiet, to swallow the pain, to keep the family picture looking pretty for everyone else? No, I wouldn't let that be her blueprint. So when I left that party, humiliated in front of half of Milwaukee, it wasn't just anger that fueled me, it was resolve. Every sacrifice I had made, every warning I ignored, every dollar I invested, it was all about to be repaid in full. And the debt collector's name was Rebecca Morris. The next morning, my brother Michael came over. He didn't even wait for me to explain. He'd already seen the videos circulating online. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, silent for a long time, just watching me stir cold coffee I couldn't bring myself to drink. Finally, he said, "You don't need to convince anyone anymore. The whole city saw it." He exposed himself. "Now you decide what happens next." I looked up at him, my throat tight. "I can't believe I didn't see it sooner." "You saw it," he said gently. "You just didn't want to admit it. But now it's undeniable, and he has no idea who he's dealing with." That was the confirmation I needed. Not just from Emily, not just from the footage burned into everyone's phones, but from someone who knew me before Mark, before the sacrifices, before the lies. Someone who believed I was capable of taking back control, and for the first time in years, I believed it too. The morning after the party, I woke up with a pounding head. Not from alcohol, but from the weight of everything crashing down. My phone was still buzzing. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. Mark's name lit up the screen over and over, but I didn't answer. I lay there in bed staring at the ceiling, my chest tight, until I finally said out loud, "No more." That was the moment the shift happened. I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the woman standing in the middle of a ballroom, slapped with humiliation. I was the woman holding the detonator. The first call I made wasn't to Mark. It was to my lawyer. "Rebecca," she said, her voice sharp but steady. "I saw the video. Half the city has. Do you want to move forward?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Full divorce, custody of Emily. I want everything protected." "Then start gathering," she replied. "Financial records, texts, emails, anything. Don't delete anything. And don't let him know what you're doing." That advice settled in my bones. Don't let him know. Let him keep underestimating me. It would make the fall that much harder. I spent the rest of the day tearing through file drawers, opening every email, downloading every bank statement. Every sacrifice I'd made was written in black and white. The checks I'd written from my inheritance to fund his business. The accounts where his work dinners mysteriously showed up as charges at hotels. The Venmo payments to Kayla labeled with innocent emojis, champagne bottles, hearts, even one with a little house. Bold as hell. By noon, I had enough evidence to bury him. Next, I called the bank. "I need to freeze the joint accounts," I said, "and I want all transfers monitored." The woman on the other end asked, "Is this due to suspicious activity?" "Yes," I answered, my voice flat. "Fraud, on my husband's part." She didn't question me further. Within hours, Mark's plastic kingdom started crumbling. Then I moved to the house. Every picture on the walls, every piece of furniture suddenly looked like it belonged to a stranger. This was the house I'd poured my soul into. Every color, every corner chosen to make it a home. Now, it was just a stage set for betrayal. I opened my laptop and contacted a realtor. "I want an appraisal," I said. Quietly. Discretion is everything. That evening, I started boxing up my life. Not out of sadness, but out of strategy. Important documents, jewelry my mother left me, Emily's schoolwork and photos, all went into containers I stacked in the garage, ready to move. Emily sat on the floor beside me, drawing in her sketchbook, and every so often she'd glance up at me like she was making sure I wasn't going to break. I didn't. Not in front of her. The first confrontation came sooner than I expected. Mark burst through the front door around 9, his tie loose, his face blotchy with anger. "Rebecca, what the hell are you doing freezing the accounts? My card got declined at lunch in front of clients. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" I looked up from the box I was sealing with tape. "Oh, you were humiliated. How tragic. I'll send you tissues." He slammed his hand against the wall. "This isn't funny. You're overreacting. We can work this out privately, but cutting me off financially? That's low, even for you." I stood slowly, my heart pounding but my voice calm. "You want to talk about low? Try cheating on your wife with your assistant at your birthday party in front of everyone. Try gaslighting me for years while you burned through my inheritance. Low doesn't even begin to cover it." His jaw clenched. He glanced at Emily, then lowered his voice. "Keep your voice down. She doesn't need to hear this." She already knows, I snapped. And she'll know every lie you told every time you tried to make me feel crazy. Because I won't carry your secrets anymore. For the first time in a long time, he looked rattled. His bravado cracked. Rebecca, let's just slow down. We can figure this out. I'll fire Kayla. I cut him off. It's too late. You can't unring that bell, and you can't stop what's already in motion. He stared at me, confused. That was the moment I realized he didn't get it. He still thought this was just another fight. Another cycle where I'd scream, cry, and then forgive. He had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. That lawyers and bankers and realtors were already part of my army. And I wasn't going to tell him. Not yet. I walked past him to the door, opened it wide, and said, "You can leave. This house won't be yours for much longer anyway." He didn't move at first, just stood there with his fists clenched, breathing hard. But eventually he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frames rattled. I stood there in the silence, chest rising and falling, adrenaline coursing through me. Then I smiled. For the first time in months, maybe years, I actually smiled. Because this was the beginning. The victim was gone. The strategist was here. And Mark had no idea how much he was about to lose. The next 48 hours were like watching dominoes fall. One by one, precise and unstoppable. The first crack showed up when Mark's corporate card bounced at a client dinner. He tried to laugh it off, but I heard from one of his partners that the waiter asked if he wanted to try a different card, loud enough for the entire table to hear. Mark stormed out without finishing the meal, and by morning, his text messages to me had shifted from pleading to threats. "Unfreeze the accounts now. You're embarrassing me. Do you want to ruin the firm? Because that's where this is heading." I didn't respond. Let him sweat. By then, the gossip around the birthday party had spread beyond Milwaukee. Videos were making the rounds on LinkedIn, TikTok, even a local news segment hinting at a prominent businessman caught in scandal. Kayla's face was front and center. Her Instagram went private overnight, and word leaked that she'd stopped showing up to the office. I imagined the whispers she endured walking through the door, co-workers side-eyeing her, wondering if she'd destroyed her own career over one drunken kiss in the wrong place at the wrong time. Except it wasn't one time. And I had the bank records to prove it. Friends started reaching out to me, not him. Women I barely knew. Wives of his partners, mothers from Emily's school, sent me messages of solidarity, screenshots of their husbands' group chats where Mark was the punchline. "He's finished," one message read. "You just set the standard for every woman who's ever been humiliated." It should have made me feel vindicated. And in some ways, it did. But mostly, it made me realize just how quickly public opinion shifts. The same people who had toasted him days earlier were now tearing him apart. That was the world he wanted. Flashy, public, performative. And now it was eating him alive. Meanwhile, Emily noticed the tension. She came home from school quiet, clutching her backpack straps. When I asked what was wrong, she hesitated before saying, "Dad called me at lunch. He sounded different, scared. He asked if I wanted to come stay with him for the weekend." My chest tightened. "And what did you say?" She looked at me, her eyes wide and steady. "I told him I'm staying with you. I don't want to be around him right now." That broke me in a way his betrayal hadn't. Because my daughter saw through him too. She wasn't blind to the consequences, and she wasn't going to let him spin it. The following day, I met with Michael and my lawyer to go over next steps. "He'll fight dirty," she warned, "but you've already hit him where it hurts. His money and his image. Keep pressing. Don't give him an inch." I nodded. He deserves worse than an inch. That night, Mark showed up at the house again. His suit was wrinkled, his hair a mess, a man unraveling. He pounded on the door until I opened it. "You're destroying me," he said, his voice hoarse. "Do you understand? The firm is in chaos. Clients are pulling contracts. Kayla's threatening to sue. And you're sitting here acting like you've won." I didn't flinch. "I don't have to act. You destroyed yourself, Mark. I'm just letting everyone see it." His eyes darted around, desperate, like he wanted to find something, anything, he could use to flip the script. But there was nothing left. Not in this house, not in this marriage. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a hiss. You think you can erase me? You'll regret this, Rebecca. I met his glare without blinking. The only regret I have is not starting sooner. I shut the door in his face and turned the lock. On the other side, I heard his fists hit the wood once, twice. Then silence. Inside, Emily peeked out from her room. Is he gone? Yes, I said softly. He's gone. And for the first time, I believed it. The man I once loved was already disappearing. What was left was just the fallout. And I wasn't finished watching it burn. My mother-in-law thought a family dinner would clear the air. She called me herself, her voice strained, asking if I could just sit down with Mark, his parents, and his brother at their favorite steakhouse. For Emily's sake, she added, like that was supposed to guilt me into submission. I almost said no, but then I realized this wasn't a trap. It was an opportunity. The restaurant was crowded that night, packed with the usual Friday rush. We were seated at a long table near the center, where everyone could see us. Mark was already there when Emily and I arrived, sitting stiffly in his pressed shirt, Kayla beside him like she was auditioning for the role of dutiful partner. Her smile was brittle, her eyes darting around nervously. As soon as I sat down, Mark plastered on his politician's grin. Rebecca, thank you for coming. I think it's important we show the family, and Emily, that we can handle this like adults. I almost laughed. Handle what? The fact that he'd turned his marriage into a sideshow attraction? His father cleared his throat. Son, we've invested so much in your reputation. This scandal, it's tarnishing everything. You need to take responsibility. Mark leaned forward, his voice smooth but tight. That's exactly what I want to do. Rebecca? I'll admit I made mistakes, but dragging our finances into this, freezing accounts, airing dirty laundry, that's going too far. I let him finish. Then I leaned back, folded my hands, and said loudly enough for the tables around us to hear, Too far? You cheated on your wife with your assistant in front of an entire ballroom. That's too far. I'm just cleaning up the mess you made. The room quieted. Forks paused mid-air. Even the waiter froze a few steps away. Kayla's cheeks went crimson. She tried to slide her hand into Mark's, but he pulled away, embarrassed. That tiny movement said everything. She wasn't an equal partner. She was collateral damage. I pulled my phone from my purse and set it on the table. Do you want me to show them the receipts? The hotel charges? The Venmo transfers with champagne emojis? Or maybe the video from your birthday party that's already viral? His mother gasped. His brother muttered, Jesus, Mark. Mark's face drained of color. Rebecca, put that away. No, I said, my voice clear and steady. Because this isn't just between us anymore. You humiliated me publicly, so I'll return the favor. You want to pretend to be a family man while sneaking around with your assistant? Then let everyone in this restaurant see who you really are. Gasps rippled around the room. Someone actually pulled out their phone to start recording. Kayla stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I'm not doing this, she snapped, her voice shaking. I didn't sign up to be destroyed along with you. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and bolted for the door. The silence she left behind was deafening. I leaned forward, locking eyes with Mark. You can spin it however you want. But the truth is out, and here's the line that will haunt you. You don't just cheat on your wife, you cheat on everyone who believed in you. The words landed like a slap. I could see people at nearby tables whispering, repeating the line under their breath, already spreading it like wildfire. Mark opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His father shook his head, disgusted, while his mother covered her face with her napkin. I stood, smoothed my dress, and looked down at him one last time. You built your reputation on lies. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. Then I walked out of that restaurant with Emily by my side, our heads high, while Mark sat there in silence, abandoned, exposed, and utterly humiliated again. I knew Mark wouldn't go down quietly. Humiliation was his worst fear, and after the birthday party and the restaurant blow-up, he was desperate to salvage what was left of his reputation. So, he did what men like him always do. He went on camera. 2 days after Kayla abandoned him at that dinner table, a clip popped up online. Mark, sitting stiffly in a local TV studio, perfectly groomed, pretending he was the victim. He leaned forward, voice trembling just enough to sound authentic, and said, "I'm a husband and a father first. My wife has been going through personal struggles, and unfortunately, some misunderstandings were made public. I ask the community to give us privacy while I focus on repairing my family. I watched it in my living room, fists clenched. Personal struggles? Misunderstandings?" He was rewriting the narrative in real time, painting me as unstable, jealous, vindictive. The comments started pouring in beneath the interview. "Poor guy. His wife sounds crazy. He deserves privacy, not this circus." For a brief moment, panic clawed at my chest. What if people believed him? What if the sympathy swung in his direction? Then I remembered what I had in my possession. Proof. Receipts. Screenshots. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to a trusted journalist I knew through Michael. I attached everything. The hotel bookings, the Venmo transfers, the late-night text messages with heart emojis, even a screenshot of Kayla thanking him for the birthday surprise at the Marriott. I ended the email with one sentence. This isn't about privacy. This is about truth. The story broke within hours. Headline: Local businessman's misunderstandings. Exposed: affair receipts. Tell different story. Screenshots splashed across news sites and Twitter feeds. People compared his TV statement to the evidence now circulating online. The hashtags started trending. Misunderstanding my ass and receipts don't lie. By evening, the comments had shifted. He really tried to gaslight the entire city. His wife deserves everything. What a snake. Imagine blaming her personal struggles while sneaking off to hotels with your assistant. Mark's credibility wasn't just dented. It was obliterated. Every interview request after that wasn't about his firm's success. It was about his lies. And then came the viral moment that sealed it. Someone clipped my line from the restaurant confrontation. "You don't just cheat on your wife, you cheat on everyone who believed in you," and overlaid it with images of his receipts. The video racked up hundreds of thousands of views overnight, reshared by influencers and community leaders. My words became the caption to his downfall. I woke up the next morning to Emily showing me TikToks where teenagers lip-synced my line, laughing as they mocked him. "Mom," she said, wide-eyed, "you're trending." It wasn't fame I wanted, but it was power. For once, the narrative was in my hands, not his. Meanwhile, Mark's firm started bleeding clients. No one wanted their brand tied to a man whose scandal had become a hashtag. His partners issued a public statement distancing themselves, calling his actions a betrayal of professional ethics and community trust. Kayla, too, broke her silence. She posted a shaky video on Instagram, tears streaming down her face, saying she had been manipulated and misled. Whether she meant it or not didn't matter. The damage was done. She wasn't standing by him anymore. By the end of the week, Mark was fully exposed. The man who once strutted through Milwaukee shaking hands and making deals couldn't walk into a coffee shop without whispers trailing him. He tried to delete his social media accounts, but screenshots live forever. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger after that first leak. The public carried the torch for me. His downfall wasn't just mine to witness. It belonged to everyone who'd ever believed in him, invested in him, or been fooled by his act. I had shown the truth, and the truth had destroyed him. The truth had already burned through his public image, but I wasn't satisfied with humiliation alone. Public opinion shifts with the wind. Bank statements and court orders don't. That's where I intended to crush him, in the cold, unfeeling precision of the law. My lawyer, a woman named Harper, was merciless in a way I envied. She didn't blink, didn't soften her tone, didn't hesitate to use every weapon at our disposal. "Rebecca," she said, sliding a thick folder across her desk. "We're not just filing for divorce. We're dismantling him, piece by piece." Inside that folder were the documents I had been gathering: financial records, proof of my inheritance funding his company, receipts of his infidelity. It was all organized into a narrative so tight it could strangle him. The first hearing was brutal, for him. I walked in calm, composed, wearing a navy suit that screamed authority. Mark showed up in a wrinkled jacket, his eyes bloodshot, his lawyer whispering frantically in his ear. When the judge reviewed the evidence, my inheritance checks, the hotel receipts, the screenshots of Kayla's late-night texts, his face went pale. "Mr. Morris," the judge said evenly, "it appears your wife has provided substantial evidence of marital misconduct and financial impropriety. This will weigh heavily in the division of assets and custody arrangements." Mark tried to object, tried to argue that I had fabricated evidence, but Harper shut him down with a single line. "If Mr. Morris believes these screenshots are false, we welcome a forensic review of his devices." His lawyer didn't even respond. From that moment, the tide wasn't just turning. It was a tsunami crashing down on him. I secured full custody of Emily with little resistance. The judge cited instability and lack of credibility on Mark's part, plus the fact that Emily herself had expressed a preference to stay with me. When she hugged me afterward and whispered, "I don't have to go with him anymore," I knew no legal victory would ever top that moment. The financial dismantling came next. Because I had funded the launch of his company with my inheritance, Harper argued, and proved, that I was entitled to half its value, if not more. His partners, already fed up with the PR disaster, seized the chance to buy out his shares at a fraction of what they were worth. He walked into court thinking he still owned a chunk of the firm. He walked out with nothing but debts and a stack of legal fees. His personal accounts had been drained by months of reckless spending and the frozen joint assets. His credit cards were maxed. He couldn't even cover the retainer for his lawyer without begging his father for help. And that's where the final blow landed. His father, the man who had quietly funded so many of Mark's stunts over the years, stood up in court one day and said, "I can't support this anymore. You've disgraced this family. You're on your own." I'll never forget the look on Mark's face, like someone had yanked the ground out from under him. His father turned his back, walked away, and didn't look back once. Even his younger brother, who used to idolize him, sent me a text. "He doesn't deserve anything. I'm with you." As for Kayla, she imploded on her own. With Mark cut out of the company, she lost her job. She tried to spin herself as a victim online, posting about being used and discarded. But the internet didn't buy it. Screenshots of her giggling at the birthday party resurfaced. Comment sections shredded her. Last I heard, she left town altogether, too humiliated to show her face in Milwaukee. Meanwhile, I moved strategically. I bought a new house for Emily and me. Nothing flashy, just safe, warm, and ours. I reopened my career path, taking consulting contracts that paid better than I expected. My life wasn't just surviving, it was rebuilding. Mark, though, he was unraveling. The firm was gone, the money gone, the family gone. He tried renting an apartment downtown, but after missing 2 payments, he was evicted. His car got repossessed. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he was sleeping on a friend's couch, dragging his suitcase from place to place. One night, Emily asked, "Where does Dad live now?" I hesitated before answering, but I told her the truth. "I don't know, honey. He doesn't have a home right now." She thought about it for a moment, then nodded. That's what happens when you lie too much. Simple. True. Brutal. The last time I saw him in court, he looked hollow. His suit hung off him like it belonged to someone else. The confident smirk he once wore like armor was gone. He avoided eye contact, avoided speaking unless forced. When the judge finalized the divorce decree, awarding me custody, child support, and a majority of the marital assets, he didn't even argue. He just slumped in his chair, defeated. Walking out of that courtroom, papers in hand, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not just because I had won, but because he had lost everything he weaponized against me: money, power, reputation, control. He wasn't Mark Morris, founder, businessman, family man anymore. He was just another man who gambled everything on arrogance and lost. By the end of that month, he was homeless. Not figuratively, literally. A man who once hosted gala dinners in tailored suits was now spotted sleeping in his car behind a grocery store, or crashing at a cousin's place until he overstayed his welcome. And me? I didn't lift a finger to make it happen. I just stopped holding him up. The fall was his alone. I didn't plan on seeing him again. By then, the divorce was finalized, the account settled, the house sold. Emily and I had moved into our new place, smaller but warm, filled with peace. I thought he'd disappear into the shadows of his own mess. But one evening, as I was leaving the grocery store with bags in my arms, I saw him. Mark was sitting on the curb near the parking lot, hunched over, unshaven, his clothes wrinkled and stained. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. The man who once strutted into boardrooms in tailored suits now looked like a stranger begging for change. When he noticed me, his eyes widened. He scrambled to his feet, almost tripping over himself. "Rebecca, wait." I froze. Every instinct told me to keep walking, but something, closure maybe, made me stop. I set the bags in the trunk, closed it, and turned to face him. He looked at me with hollow eyes. "I need to talk to you." I crossed my arms. "Make it quick." His voice cracked as he spoke. "I don't have anywhere else to go. My dad cut me off. My brother won't even return my calls, and I can't get a job. Nobody wants to hire me after everything online. Please, Rebecca." "I made mistakes, but I'm still your husband." The word husband hit me like an insult. I almost laughed. "Ex-husband. Don't get it twisted." He flinched. "Fine, ex-husband. But we built a life together. You can't just erase that. I know I screwed up, but can't you give me another chance?" I shook my head slowly. "Another chance? Do you know how many chances I gave you? When you came home late and I believed your excuses. When you gaslit me into thinking I was paranoid. When I gave up my career to raise our daughter while you played businessman. You had 100 chances, Mark. And you threw every single one away." His eyes glistened. "Desperate. I don't know how to do this without you. I don't know how to be alone." For a moment, I almost pitied him. But then I remembered Emily's face the night she told me she saw him with Kayla. I remembered the slap at the birthday party, the whispers, the lies, the tears I cried alone in our bedroom while he was out working late. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "You were never alone. You had me. You had Emily. You had a family, a business, a home. And you burned it all down for cheap thrills and ego." He shook his head violently, tears slipping down his cheeks. "Please, Rebecca, just help me. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll change." I cut him off, my tone ice cold. "You can't change the past, and you can't undo what you did. This isn't about therapy or promises. This is about consequences. And for once in your life, you're the one facing them." His shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him. He looked small, broken, like a boy who'd finally realized the monster he'd become. "Don't do this to me," he whispered. I leaned in, my eyes locked on his. "I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself." He blinked, confused, desperate for me to soften. I didn't. "You're the architect of your own destruction," I said, my voice clear, steady, final. And with that, I turned, got into my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw him sink back down onto the curb, head in his hands, swallowed by the wreckage of the empire he'd built on lies. I didn't feel pity anymore. I felt free. It's been a year since that night in the parking lot. A year since I looked into Mark's hollow eyes and walked away for good. Life looks nothing like it did back then. And that's the best part. Emily and I live in a sunlit townhouse on the east side of Milwaukee now. It isn't grand or flashy, but it's ours. She has a room full of sketches taped to the walls, and I have a small office where I've rebuilt my career on my own terms. I went back into consulting, and within months I was working with clients who valued me. Me, not my connection to Mark or his firm. The money is steady, the work fulfilling, and every dollar feels like mine, not something filtered through his hands. More importantly, Emily has changed. She's lighter somehow, freer. I see it when she laughs with her friends, when she brings home her A's from school, when she curls up next to me on the couch without that anxious look in her eyes. Once she asked me, "Mom, are we safe now?" And I answered with absolute certainty, "Yes, we are." And I meant it. Mark, on the other hand, is a ghost of his former self. The man who once thrived on attention is now invisible. Word around town is he's drifting from job to job, never lasting more than a few weeks. His father has cut him out of the family trust. His brother won't return his calls, and Kayla vanished from the city altogether. He's nobody's leader, nobody's husband, nobody's father. Sometimes I catch snippets of him in the background of someone else's story, spotted begging for work at networking events, seen leaving a shelter downtown. But he's not my story anymore. He's just a cautionary tale people whisper about before moving on to something more interesting. And I've never felt more at peace. Betrayal nearly broke me, but it also rebuilt me. I found strength I didn't know I had, a voice I refused to silence, and a future I now shape without fear. My daughter doesn't see her mother as a victim. She sees her as a woman who stood her ground and refused to settle for less than respect. Sometimes, late at night, I think about all the versions of myself I had to bury: the trusting wife, the self-sacrificing partner, the woman who looked the other way. They're gone now, and in their place is someone sharper, wiser, freer. Mark thought he was taking everything from me when he betrayed me. What he really did was hand me the key to my own freedom. And that's the truth I'll carry with me forever. Betrayal is painful, yes, but it's also the fire that clears the path. I walked through it, I survived it, and I came out the other side unburned, unstoppable, and finally, free. Thank you so much for watching and staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you in any way, or if you've lived through something similar, I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences down in the comments. Your voice matters here. Sharing these stories reminds us we're not alone. And if you found this video powerful, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and bring more stories like this to life. Until next time, take care of yourself.